Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. This is Chatzzz episode 31. It's 31 episodes. We've got a very, very special guest today. Dean Thomas, welcome to the podcast.
We can't. I can't. Are you doing more than one cat on this?
We can do it if we can start again if you want.
Yeah, that was what I was thinking. Who's that?
I told you it's a podcast voice. Hello, 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 and welcome back to another episode of the podcast. This is episode 31 of Chatzzz, and we've got a very special guest today, Dean Thomas. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Adam.
No problem. I see you've got your own podcast voice going on there.
Just my usual Welsh voice.
So actually in Newcastle today, believe it or not, a long, long way away from home.
Yeah, 380 miles.
So how was your day traveling?
Yeah, good. Yeah.
So the way we start the podcast is we'll get you to introduce yourself to the viewers and the listeners. So if you meet someone for the first time, how would you introduce yourself?
I'm Dean Thomas. I'm Managing Director, owner of Caerphilly Funeral Services.
Nice. So then the next thing is 3 facts about yourself. So I'm giving you about 20 minutes to prepare.
3 facts. So I was born in Pontypridd in South Wales. I came to Newcastle to university, hence the links back here today. And I've had my own businesses since I was 21.
Nice. So you're born in Pontypridd. So have you lived there all your life then? Since you
Nearly all my life, apart from a year living in Southport while I worked in Wigan, and then 3 years up here in Newcastle in the northeast.
for uni. How did you find Pontypridd then? Is it just like home for you or?
It was, then moved to Caerphilly then, but yes, it's just like a small, quiet hometown.
Nice. And then the second fact was, what was the second fact again?
That I came to
Newcastle.
meet here in Newcastle.
Yeah. So you've spoken a lot about Newcastle to me, haven't you?
Where?
How was that experience for you then? Because did you pick that because it was literally the furthest?
It was literally the third place to go on the old clearance form, and they, of course, sounded interesting. So I filled the gap thinking I'd never go there. So by accident, really.
Yeah. And what was the uni experience like for you in Newcastle? Because I know from when I've been out, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it was good. It was a bit quieter as a student without the money to pay for everything you might have. And it was a bit quieter in the late 80s, given my age away.
Nice. So then the third one was how long have you had your business for, did you say?
I had my first business within a few months of graduating when I was 21.
I think we'll talk more about that later on. But it's funny because that's when I had my first one. It was like, it was three months after I finished, something like that. Scary.
Yeah.
So the way we kind of start the podcast is going back to what you were like as a kid growing up. If there's anything that you feel like now, if you reflect back to it, it's kind of like shaped who you are today. So like little things, maybe first memory and that kind of thing. So what were you kind of like growing up or when you were little?
Very quiet, very family orientated, didn't really socialize much. Most of the time was spent visiting families, time with the family. So very quiet. I hardly went out. Very quiet.
Why would you say quiet a couple of times and you just like keep yourself to yourself? You say a bit more introverted or what?
Yeah, because the social network always revolved around family. So all about that, around different family members' houses. So it wasn't a time we went out for meals. Parents didn't drink, so didn't really socialize or go out much. It's all totally different.
Yeah, that's interesting. So then going throughout school then, did you enjoy the academic side or was it more the extracurricular stuff or where did you kind of fit in that environment?
I was the first in the family to do O-levels, then on to A-level. So there was sort of a lot of pressure to do well academically. Although by the end of sixth form, I was fed up with being in the same school at 18 that I was in at 11. So I really got bored with it by the time I'd done my A-levels.
So with going through school then, was it always kind of your goal or ambition to go to university then? Or was it, because I know some people would, like that I've had on the podcast, they're just, I want to finish as soon as I can and go and earn money and that kind of thing, or...
I think as soon as I got to A-levels, I wanted to go on to university, although because my A-levels in maths, physics, and computing, it was very much engineering that I was interested in at that time, or computer science, not business. Hadn't even come across it at that stage.
Had you always done a type of business at that when you were growing up, or what was kind of like the dream job for you? Was it engineering or?
I think either engineering or teaching. There were a few people in the family who'd had businesses, but it wasn't something that really was on the radar in the 80s. It was very much you find employment after you left school or university.
I feel like that's a lot like the system, isn't it? That when you go to school, they'll just like funnel you into, all right, okay, so you go to primary school, then you do whatever the exams are there, then you go to secondary school, you do your GCSEs, and then end of the world at the time. And then you do your A-levels, and then they're the end of the world if you fail them, but then you go to university and then you do that. And I was saying on the last podcast that I think sometimes people forget that schools and university get paid bums on seats, don't they?
Yeah, that's
so
right.
However many people they have in the class or the year, they'll get that certain amount of budget. And they, even though that some like lecturers or teachers may care, they're not really that bothered, are they? They just want to get them the grades so they can get the report or whatever.
I think as well, in that sort of era, it was those who didn't do O-levels, took apprenticeships in, it was British Coal at that point, joined the forces. Those who did A-levels in my school either went on to become doctors, teachers. There wasn't the range of career options. And there wasn't really the career service that there is now.
Because so then when you went to university, what was kind of like the thought process? Was it, I just want to be an engineer, or was it just, I want to see how it goes? Because it's a big, well, when I was 18, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. It's a big thing for someone that age, isn't it? 'Cause you're only a baby, aren't you, really?
I think what changed was in sixth form, got involved with Young Enterprise, where you set up and run a little business amongst your friends at school. And that opened something that was totally different. There wasn't business studies. Girls did typing. That was the only business thing. And then that opened up new interest. So I thought, right, business management, that is the more of interest to me than physics, computer science, and maths. So it was that really gave me a massive change in direction in sixth form.
Yeah. So what appealed to you with the Young Enterprise? Because I did that when I was at school as well.
I think it was just the interest of sort of creating a business, finding something that could earn money, that you could make a profit from, build the business up. So it was things that were totally different, and you could see real-time results from it. It wasn't just theoretic, and it wasn't as academic as physics, particularly.
Yeah, because when I did the Young Enterprise, it was like, say, it's like, oh, you can make money on this, you can make profit and stuff. I can't remember what we did. We did like some like vests that said like #massive, almost loads of people were interested in the gym and stuff. And we did like sweet stalls, fair trade, and God knows what else. It wasn't the most businessy stuff in the world.
No, I think we were Christmas cards, and then it was jewellery because a few of the girls were big into jewellery. So it was Christmas cards and jewellery were the two things.
Yeah. It's weird, isn't it? Because like you say, when you're doing the Young Enterprise, you think, oh, I can make so much money for this. Yeah. But then in reality, it's like anywhere outside of school, you're not saying that jewellery.
No, I don't think everyone who bought it was either family or kids in school or teachers. Yeah.
So then that kind of opened your eyes into businessy stuff.
Yeah.
So you didn't even choose to do business studies then, right?
I did then when I decided that was the way forward, but I wanted something that had an interest as well. So I looked at business with with the specialism, and what attracted me to the one here in Newcastle was it was logistics and transport option, which gave a number of different options. So as soon as I got involved with young enterprise, engineering was just put straight on the back burner.
Yeah. For me as well, like A levels is a lot like a memory test, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like in the real world, you need more practical skills, don't you?
Yeah.
Because I'd imagine if people ever apply for jobs with you, it might look really good on paper, but when you meet them in person, it could be completely different.
Definitely. And I think the other part has been able to apply. People can be very good academically, but not be able to apply anything.
So then going through Newcastle Uni with business management, was that what you expected or what you hoped with the course and with the lifestyle as well?
Yeah, it was great. It was a really good mix of high academic standards. We had really good lecturers. Some of them we're still in contact with now, 30 odd years after graduating. A real good practical sense because we studied distribution. We studied all of the breweries in the northeast of England and Scottish borders. There were lots of field trips, made a lot of good contacts. Some of my friends are still friends from uni days. So it was a really good academic course. It was a good mix of people, and it really influenced the rest of my career.
And then moving, say, from Wales to Newcastle, how did you find that transition? Was it an easy one for you, or was it difficult? Because I know you said you were quiet when you were growing up. Did you manage to socialise and embed yourself into university life, or?
It was a bit of a shock, but coming to Newcastle for the interview, I felt at home, and then suddenly being here, it was a bit of a shock being in one of the most vibrant cities in the UK. But yeah, you get into it quite quickly.
Can you remember what your first day was like?
It was quite boring, really, because it was all the induction day of showing all your A-level certificates, filling out paperwork, getting timetables, and just being in a room with loads of people that you didn't really know. But it was quite boring and very paperwork based.
Because I'll never forget the day that my dad dropped me off in my halls at uni and just left me in my little room, and I was like, what do we do now?
Yeah.
Never been like on my own, to cook and clean and all that kind of stuff. And
yeah, well, I was literally got on the National Express from Cardiff, and then arrived.
How long did that take then, National Express? I must take around 9 hours.
Yeah, I think it was about 7-8 hours. Yeah.
That's a long time. So then going through uni then, what was kind of like the thought process? Because business management is obviously a good degree, but there's no set career path, is there, I suppose, per se?
No, because we were studying professional qualifications as well, Chartered Institute of Transport. So that was always one of the things. And so because we did industrial placement and tax, so it was pretty much, I'd been promised jobs on graduating. So there was a career path there. Didn't happen in the way that it was planned, but there was a plan.
That's good then, isn't it? Like you say, that you did the option. It would have been interesting to see if you didn't have the option of the logistics side, if there would have been like a set path.
Yeah. I don't know what I would have done, to be honest. I think because it's a very broad subject, and that was one of the advice that I was given, was to do a specialism so that you've got specialism and a general.
Yeah. Because when I went to uni, I wanted to do events because I was really into events and festivals and stuff. My dad said, you don't want to limit yourself to one thing, do hospitality and events. So I went to do that, but then dropped the events because I thought it was boring. But like, they promised that they'd give like placements and all this and that. So I thought, like, that's why I asked you, there's going to be like a work experience, and you're like, you go here and you can get a job, blah, 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 but you have to do it like all yourself and put yourself out there. But it's good that they gave you the option of work placements.
There was an established network of placements with many of the bigger groups, but because I wanted to go back home, I found my own placement with a business in Pontypridd. So I found the placement, we found funding for it. And so that was something I did do myself, but because I wanted to be in South Wales, not in the northeast of England or the northwest.
So then, what would you say you learned then from these placements and that kind of thing about yourself? Because you'd have been 1920?
19 first of all. So the first one was good because it was had been a family-owned business that had a coach company, a garage business, and then part of that was a funeral business. So it was very much hands-on, at the deep end, literally just given projects to do and get on with managing the staff. The transport manager left after a few months, so I covered that vacancy. So I had some really good practical experience and was able to use my qualifications as well.
Mm-hmm. So it's like we were just saying about like practical experience to like textbook. It's so much like you can learn so much in a classroom, can't you? And then when you're in an actual job, I bet it's completely different, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And also age at that time when you're 19 and you're managing mainly men who are sort of in their 50s, 60s and 70s who see you as the young kid who doesn't really know what he's doing. So you've learned to stand your ground as well.
That's the thing that you can't teach, isn't it? Like experience. I think it's an important part of any job, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Because I was listening to a podcast the other day. It's like a personal trainer or something saying there's so many like personal trainers that say get the qualifications and want to be like an online coach, but then they've never taught anyone on the gym floor, but they don't know like how people actually work and that kind of thing. So you can learn so much in a university and get a degree, but going in, it's like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing anything.
Yeah, there is parts of that if you haven't experienced the sort of the industrial placement side, it can be very theoretical, and then suddenly people expect you to know what your degree's in, but you've got no practical experience at all.
Yeah. So then after the placements, then where was your head at with getting a job and that side of things? So obviously time was creeping up. You'd done a year or two, and
I think I'd been offered a job, but things changed in that company. Thankfully, I didn't end up working there. And then I went to work for Sheeran's Holidays, which at that time was part of the rank Mecca and had really good systems for senior management training where you went around different departments. So it was really good. And while I was there, in partnership, bought a coach from them and then set up a coach business back in Pontypridd whilst I was still working at Sheeran's in Wigan.
So then how did it come about that you bought this coach then? Because imagine, how old are you, 21?
21.
Yeah. So like not everyone would think, all right, I'm going to buy this coach now and I'm going to set up back up.
I could see the company I worked in needed to change and could see the opportunity. So it was a case of the opportunities were there. So I decided with a friend to take the opportunity.
Mm-hmm. I suppose you've got to be a certain kind of person, though, haven't you? Like you say, see it as an opportunity rather than like, oh, this is failing or whatever, this is rubbish, whatever, and just carry on and just take a paycheck every month from that side of things.
Yeah, it was a big jump.
So had you always wanted to have like your own business then? Or
I think once it started the placements in small company and thought to be not wanted to sound sort of cocky, if these people are getting by, sure we'll do better than this.
Yeah.
And so, that was the time it made it change.
Yeah. So then, I think, like you say, if you were managing like older people as well at such a young age, it'll give you a lot of confidence in it, and you'll learn a lot about people, because I feel like managing people's probably one of the most hardest things to do, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Like the logical thing may be to do X, but a human may think Y, do the complete opposite thing for no apparent reason.
Yeah, it challenges your securities as well, because you get used to, everyone thinks you're going to leave school, leave uni, get a job, have a salary, have wages at the end of the month, nice, secure career for life.
So then you work in a job and set up back home then with this coach. How did you find managing that? What a lot going on at once.
It was okay. It worked out well. But after early the following year, really, the decision was made that couldn't do the two. So I left to concentrate on the business in Pontypridd.
So making that decision, was that difficult for you, or did it just make sense? Because obviously if you're getting like that set wage every month, going to like say that insecure and just unknown.
It was at the point where really I had to decide either I'm going to be employed on a salary or we've got to take that jump and give it a go. Otherwise, time was split. So it was a decision to basically, right, let's give it a go. That was the time to do it.
How would you describe yourself at that age then? Would you say you're a bit like naive or courageous, or what to say? Because definitely when I was younger, I'd do a lot of things that I probably wouldn't do now. And I think it's just more of like, you think you can do anything, you take the jump, you don't think of you don't understand the risks, you haven't made the mistakes yet. And
the risk side was all pretty much covered, but I think, you do get a bit cocky. You think like, I'm straight out of uni, I've got my qualifications, I've seen these people get things wrong, so I've got all the magic answers, and then life teaches you a few lessons.
But I think at that age though, it's important, isn't it, to make mistakes?
Yeah, you learn from your mistakes.
Yeah, and take the risks, because otherwise then you may live with regrets.
Definitely.
Better to do it and think, all right, it didn't really work out, I'll do it different next time, rather than, oh, I wish I did that.
I think as well, if you look at all the successful business people, nearly all of them have had failures along the way and have persevered and learned.
Yeah, and it's all about just winning more than you lose, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because people still lose it every day and every week and every month, don't they? It's just about having that winning out.
Yeah, and learning when to get out as well.
Yeah. So then when you went full-time into the coach business, how did things kind of progress from there then?
Yeah, I'd used my old contacts. So with subcontractors for quite a while, but really after a couple of years, it was a partnership, and I didn't want to be in partnership. I felt I wanted my way. So then I had a massive career change and became a civil servant.
All right. So you say about coach business, you went in partnership, you used like your network. Would you say that was a skill that you learned maybe at university, and you really...
A little bit, plus the contacts that I had when I was at Sheeran's, learning about subcontracting, using networks, that a lot of academic and the businesses I worked for, competition was bad. There was no working with other businesses. So it was something that I'd learned at Sheeran's, learning about subcontracting to bring in extra capacity, and it worked. It worked well for them, and a reasonable amount of money from it. So.
Yeah, networking is so important, isn't it? I think
Definitely.
One thing I feel like you don't realise how good it is until you do it properly.
Yeah, but you've got to have the good people in the network to reciprocate.
Yeah, definitely. You quickly figure out who's just happy to use you as well.
Yeah.
And then the other way around, it's just like, all right, okay, I see how it is.
And there's a lot of talkers and don't actually deliver the goods. So, yeah.
Yeah. So then going into a civil servant, how was that for you?
It was a big change, going from an environment where you could make decisions and risk to a very hierarchical, traditional structure where you were graded. So I went in as an EO, executive officer. So it was very much, that's your rank, that's your grade. And you could be doing anything and not necessarily anything that you really knew about. So I was taking on as an executive officer, looking at European funding. I didn't even know the countries that were in Europe at that point in time. And I had literally 2 months to become au fait with European funding for the different government training schemes for people and businesses.
Sure.
So a bit of a change.
I was going to say, why is civil servant then?
It was something that interested me. The money was good. And it was something that because of my qualifications, because of my experience, because of my age, the interview panel felt that I had a lot to offer. And it just sounded like I only intended to do it for about 2 years to earn some money, but I didn't intend to do it for as long as I did. It was only going to be a 2-year, earn some money, and then go back to doing a business on my own.
Yeah. So for this interim period then, so what did you want to take from it? Was it just literally to earn some money to set up business on your own again? Or?
Yes. Yeah. Build cash back up and and refresh some of the skills.
Yeah. I think, was that difficult for you going back into that kind of role?
It was difficult when you could see things that the main thing I found is the civil service, like all government, is about how much you spend, not necessarily for value for money. So in some ways, if you spent more money, because if you think of everything as your politician says, we've spent X amount, the more we spent, the better, not necessarily how efficient you are. So it was frustrating. Decision-making processes were very long, and you had some people were, oh, I run a business myself because I run a team, and just clearly didn't get that, you've got your income is guaranteed, your sales are guaranteed. It's not managing a team, is not running a business.
Yeah, so much more to that, isn't it?
Definitely. Yeah.
So then how long were you civil servant for?
7 years. So we were government quango, so 7 really good years, progressed, ended up as the head of business development, involved with investors, and had a really good time.
So then when did you want to leave then? Or when, because obviously you say you did 2 years, you must have been really enjoying it then to stay a bit longer. And what was like the turning point for you thinking, oh, I don't know?
Salary increases was very good. Promotion was very good, kept you locked in. But then it was the change of government from Conservative to Labour in the late 90s, where we knew we would be one of the quangos that would have been closed. Then it was very political decisions on recruitment, and it just felt right at the time to, if I could get redundancy and get out, that was the time. At that point, wasn't married, didn't have children, so it was a once in a lifetime opportunity, and so decided to take the money and run.
So when you ran with that money, what did you do with it?
So it was straight away then, within a couple of weeks, set up new businesses. So set up a coach company and set up a funeral business, all within a couple of weeks.
So why a funeral business?
Because I kept contact, I could see that it was a good, solid business. It was something that I was interested in. I could see that there were some questionable business practices going on at that time, with the logistics background, very much just in time. So I could see I had transferable skills, and I could see I thought some opportunities to give it a go.
Have you always been confident within yourself, checking?
No, definitely not.
No.
No.
I think, how did that develop over time? Because by the sounds of it, you're very I can see that, I'm going to do it. And you're confident, maybe self-confident, maybe, would you say? Or
I think perhaps subconsciously, but having a lot of people around who were sort of doubting you, saying, oh, how are you going to do it? You need a lot of money. You need a fortune to go into business. If they've been going for years, what are you going to do? Also having individuals who were probably insecure with themselves saying, oh, you're only doing it because this is me, and they dent your confidence, but then later you find out that actually don't let them get in your way.
Yeah, because I think people like that, they only say it because they know they couldn't do it themselves.
Yeah.
And maybe a little bit of jealousy or just envy that you've got the balls of the company to do it them yourself. And they're a bit like, oh, well, I should do it or whatever, and I can't. That kind of thing is interesting, isn't it? You realise who is the supportive people.
Yeah.
Who are the people who are the doubters and stuff.
And sometimes the one with the more support are the ones who challenge you. Don't just say, yeah, and that can see things are going to go wrong and just let you carry on for it. But other than that, the ones who have got their own motives and their own agenda.
Yeah. So then how did things progress then with the funeral business then, when you first started?
So again, one of the lessons learned, the first funeral business was in the Rhondda Valleys, because all of the research, again, going back to earlier, the academic side showed that there was a case for independent funeral director because it was highly co-op dominated. We didn't do a funeral. So then the quick thinking was using the assets to hire out to other funeral directors who needed cars, hearses, staff. So it was thinking on feet, using what we had, and looking for other ways to bring money in, and then how to get out to the premises that we leased. So it was a bit of a disaster recovery. But look at the way forward. Similarly with the coach side, it was a problem with staffing, taking on drivers who had a culture of I would do schools, but don't expect me to work weekends, don't expect me to work in the summer. So that was but that didn't fit with the business model that I wanted. And then that part I thought, this really isn't worth the hassle. And so kept that part, just concentrate on the funeral business.
Yeah. I suppose, like you say, if you set up in one location, you could have one mindset of, oh, it's failed, let's give up. Or, like you say, adapt the strategy to move forward, because you have to be open to change, don't you?
Definitely.
And that's another thing that I feel like people, especially these days, and people I know are very quick to have the next best idea and either not even start it or start it. And then when it doesn't work out in the first few months, just give up.
I think as well, there's a lot of people who like to see people fail. And I think some people get more satisfaction out of somebody failing or seeing somebody succeeding. So it's very much as well a culture of if you fail, give up.
Yeah. And I find as well, say like with social media these days, there may be people that may be close to me, not like friends, but like people that I know of, like you say, would be less supportive than like random people that just like follow me on social media and stuff, which is just like crazy, isn't it? That like they're like egging you on and trying to push you up, where people who are close to you are like, I don't want him to do well or whatever, or something like that.
Especially if they've done it themselves or are not confident enough to have done it themselves.
It's weird, isn't it? But so yes, then focus on the funeral side of the business. Then how did it go when you just had 100% of your time and energy focused on that?
So it built up over mainly through contacts over a couple of years, hiring out hearses and limousines and staff to quite a big network of funeral directors, independent, and some of the big groups. And so built that up. I was also doing some business consultancy at the time as a personal business advisor, plus had contracts to monitor and audit some of the government training schemes. So I had other income streams as well, and then built the funeral business up, and then had some opportunities to buy some of the businesses that we were hiring across to.
You keep on going about network and stuff, so you must have a massive network of people that you know and then like built relationships over the years, have you?
We did at that point, but now it's much more keep everything close to each other.
I suppose when you hire them, it's like that. I suppose when you're on the come up, it's more like, I need to know everyone and that kind of thing.
Times have changed as well. A lot of the smaller businesses are no longer there, and there's a lot more pressure. It's a lot more competitive. So, but it was very much built up on networks.
Yeah. So then, how did things go after that then? So you said obviously, you built it up and progressed it from there. What was kind of like the next steps, or what was kind of like your vision for the future after that point?
So you could see that for the long term, the only way really to work was to actually buy out and establish funeral business. So we had 4 propositions on the table that we looked at, and Kiffiny was the best one. So we bought Kiffiny Funeral Services in 2004 and then built and developed it from there.
So when you say the best in what aspects, what appealed to that one compared to the other 3?
Reputation. It had a good reputation for quality. It owned its own premises. The others were all leased, so there was no security on assets. At that time, we'd already moved, so I was living in Caerphilly, so it was local. I knew John and Wendy, who owned the business before us. I'd known them for many years. John and Wendy were both very supportive. When they wanted to sell to us, we wanted to buy from them. The bank knew both parties. The accountants knew both parties, so it all fell in together. And it was the right size to be able to run and develop.
Nice. So what was the feeling like then when you got it signed across? Can you remember?
It was a little bit surreal because of the size of the purchase at that time. But also, we had to keep things confidential because one of the ex-business partners I was still supplying a lot of services to And there was a concern that if people knew the business had changed ownership, they may go elsewhere. So there was a 12-month period in which we let the business run as it had. So you couldn't tell people that we'd actually bought the business. Even some family and friends didn't know that we'd actually bought the business. And even the staff didn't know that we bought the business. So it was all kept quiet for 12 months.
Oh, that's interesting, isn't it? So, say the owners, they still running it then for 12 months?
Yes.
Ah, right, okay. Even though you officially owned it, but they were still day-to-day.
Yeah, so so we had given John shares in the company, so he was a shareholder within the company, and we let it run for 12 months fully under his control. And then we had a 2-year of me phasing in, and then John eased out as I eased in.
Cool. So then how did you find the easing in phase then? I bet were you like itching to get in, or?
In some ways, yeah. So there was things that put my approach on it, and there were things that it was still very traditional, wanted to modernise, change a few things, needed investment, and I could see the potential to develop and grow it. But it was a very traditional business at that time.
So how's it developed then over the years, would you say?
So we've invested huge amounts in premises, fleet, staff training. The business is 3 times the size of what it was. Got additional funeral home. We've tried other different things that haven't always worked. Got the cremation side, so it's 3 times the size of what it was.
Yeah.
Then we bought it.
So tripling the size then, what would you say, it's not really one thing, but what would you say a few key things that you reckon that have helped that growth?
Building on good customer service, investment, the marketing, and constant perseverance, trying to do things better all the time, improve customer service, value for money, and really developed into being the leader in terms of market size. And I think that competitors are following us.
Yeah. So would you say it's important as well? Well, would you say when you took over, would you say managing a team, how was that for you? Did you manage a team that size before, or?
It was quite a small team compared to previous teams. So biggest team I'd managed was over 200 staff.
Oh.
So, and
like work then?
Yeah, you didn't see them. So it wasn't, you only saw the problematic ones. So, it was only a small team of staff in total. When we merged the 2 companies, there was only 14 staff. But it was just trying to train some people who'd worked one way for many years that wasn't the best way to be working, and wasn't the way we'd be working going forward.
Yeah, people set in the ways. I imagine there's a bit of staff turnover.
Yeah, there was a high amount of staff turnover in the early days.
Yeah. I suppose that's just normal, isn't it?
Just a bit settled down there for about 7 years. We had no staff turnover at all.
Yeah. So then, like you say, a few things, like say customer service. So with you, why is customer service so important?
I think with the nature of the business as funeral directors, nobody wants to be arranging a funeral. So you've got a once only chance to get things right, and you've got to exceed expectations. So that's important. And secondly, my own personal values, you don't want dissatisfied customers.
Because I'd imagine it's a very hard, difficult, but rewarding job at the same time, isn't it? Like you say, if you're providing this excellent customer service to the family, that nobody wants to be there today, but if you get the good reviews and the thanks for it, then that, I'd imagine that makes you feel you and the team really good.
I think the other thing, because we can't compete on price, because somebody running from home who's hiring in versus cars, got no staff, we can't compete with how cheap they can. So it's customer service, high standards of service.
So then, like you said about staff training as well. So like investment and stuff, investing in your staff, investing in your team, has that been like a key part of then growing the business, would you say?
Definitely, and it goes back to my experiences in working for other people. During my time in the civil service, I was an investors in people assessor, so I knew the investors in people standard, which I felt was really good. Management charter initiative, so I knew about management training. So it was all about getting business mission, the business plan, how people fit it in, training people and getting the values right the way through. So it was part of, again, theory and practice and best way of working.
Yeah, because I'd imagine, like, say, you're always looking at improving things, and there's always new training techniques and new things in the funeral industry. So keep people up to scratch with that. I'd imagine they feel like more involved and you're investing time and money into them. So, like, say, when you had 7 years of no staff turnover, that's probably why, isn't it? Because you value the team. It's not just like they're there to do a job whatever you don't care about. We actually do show that you care. So, yeah. So then what else was the other thing you said about the key component of tripling the business? So you said about staff training, we said about service.
Investment was a massive part.
Yeah.
To make sure that if you see the funeral home now compared to what it was internally and externally, massive investment to see that we've got the best we can do with the premises that we've got. Fleet, we've got one of the most modern fleets. That was massive investment. That's our shop front, and basically trying to keep ahead of everything, keep everything fresh.
Was it scary, like, making all these big purchases then? So, like, obviously you need to spend money to make money, don't you? Making these big purchases can be quite daunting and stuff and that kind of thing. How do you just, like, manage that in your head? And imagine it'd be a big mental battle. It's like, oh, should I spend this money or should I not? It's going to be worth it. Is it not? That kind of thing. You don't know, do you?
It is daunting when, as a director, you've got to give personal guarantees. So you're not just, everyone thinks if you're a limited company, if you go bust, it's the assets of the company. People don't get the director's guarantees, so you're personally liable, that your house is on the line, all your assets are on the line. And when you look at it and think, £250,000 on some new cars, what will they earn? How will we pay for them? So it is daunting. But then if you don't move forward, you can end up with having life expired assets, tired premises, and if you don't speculate, you won't accumulate.
It's a good phrase, that's unfair. Yeah. So then, because like you say, that's the other thing that people don't or wouldn't understand is, like, when you take these risks, they are big risks. Like I say, you're personally liable for that kind of thing. Whereas other people who may think, oh, he's doing all right, he's got his own business, it must be easy and stuff, but they don't understand or even start to, I don't know, get it that it's difficult, isn't it? You know? Like, you put yourself in that position, it's not easy, is it?
No.
Probably a little bit easier now than it was then, but it's still difficult, isn't it? In different ways.
It changes, yeah.
Yeah, easier maybe day to day, but not maybe on the macro scale kind of thing. And yeah, friends, family members may think, oh, you, isn't it? But they don't know what goes on a bit.
Yeah, they don't see the long hours, they don't see the part of the, you should call a fat cat.
So then what would you say kind of like the vision is, or where do you see things going then in the near future for funeral services?
I think the biggest challenge is how we get the message across to people that there's lots of big groups who are selling what appears to be cheap funerals that are not funerals at all. That with legislation and higher standards, there will be higher prices and what people will get. There's a lot of factors there. And then it's survival of the business and proving that quality is what will win in the long term.
Because co-op's a big competitor, isn't it? And dignity.
Yeah.
So then with the competition of the bigger groups buying up these all little ones, I imagine that's a lot more prevalent than it was back when you first bought it, isn't it?
A bit less. The co-op are not buying so many. Dignity is strategic acquisitions, but there's a lot of ex-co-op staff who've set up small funeral businesses, a lot of disgruntled staff who think, well, I only need to do one funeral a month. So there's a lot more of smaller micro businesses. Many of them are not members of the trade associations, dubious standards, and will advertise the funeral for prices that we know can't be sustainable for the long term.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of medium-sized branches that of the co-op on some of the dignity ones that have closed because the smaller businesses have taken funerals away, and with a high fixed cost base have made many businesses non-sustainable.
Yeah, it's a competitive industry, isn't it?
Very competitive. Yeah, and people think that it's something that they don't see. They think funerals cost £9,000-10,000. They think it's all the funeral director's money. They don't see the thousands of pounds that we spend out on disbursements. We don't make a penny on. We don't see running a business 24/7, having all the staff in place, all the overheads. They don't see that. They think it's all
just rock up.
profit.
Yeah, rock holiday, and there you go.
Yeah, money in nice cars. But if we turned up on a £2,000 from eBay car, it would be
Yeah, exactly. And that's the other thing as well. People will just automatically think, oh, funeral directors, oh, they'll always be in business, won't they? But it's not like that, is it?
Definitely not. There's a lot of funeral directors who are not in business anymore, and there's a lot that are struggling. We've had quite a few in the last 3 weeks that are funeral businesses that are for sale.
Yeah. All right, cool. So the last part is biggest mistake or biggest regret. So either personal life or business life. It can be either, it can be both. You've had some time to think about this as well, Matt. What are you going to do? You going to do personal business or both? Or
I think personal would be perhaps listening too much to people who were sort of, you'd end up over worrying, becoming over anxious of things, and people who might be jealous or afraid of taking those risks, and then listening to them when you know deep down that, just give it a go.
Yeah. Would you say then, it's hard, isn't it? Because like, if you say it's your friends or your family and they're saying, you want to listen to them, don't you? But you know in yourself. Yeah, it's a tough one.
I think you're conditioned to listen to your elders and listen to people, but...
you are though, aren't you? I listened to a podcast before and it was saying like, say your mum and dad, when you're growing up, you're so used to like listening to what they say and doing as they say. And then when you get to a certain age, you're like, no, I'm not going to do that. Do that thing. That kind of thing.
And if you've got people around you who worry a lot, you get to, worry about that. You worry about that, and something we haven't from our kids that worry. Be aware of it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. I think I've been lucky that my parents like gave me a lot of confidence. If I wanted to do something, I'd go and do it. You know what I mean? Not have to worry about, like, say, money or whatever it is, and just go after what you want to do and kind of thing. Like, they be aware of the consequences, but if you want to do it, fully support you and stuff. I think that's a big thing in anyone's life, to have the confidence to do what you want to do. It's going to make you happy, rather than thinking of, what about this, what about that? And it's all in your head, isn't it?
And all concentrate on the negative, not the positive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a lot of people are negative though these days. Like,
definitely
social media and stuff like that, when it's like, you can do it. There's no real limitations. But are you going to do a business one or what? Business regret, business mistake?
Business regret. I think perhaps in hindsight, some of the earlier decisions being a little bit academic, not sort of opening a funeral on the Rhonda, was, theory and practice, two different things. So perhaps some of in the earlier days, perhaps it's a little bit too much to theory and advice of people like, say, accountants. Don't spend any money, cut your costs back. Why are you spending money on advertising? Why are you spending money on developing a business? Why are you spending money on that? And cautious, but that's some of the regrets. And this is people who were close around me. But that would be the business regrets.
Yeah. Especially like we were saying earlier, when you're younger as well, it's good to make the mistakes, isn't it? When you're younger, maybe. And then say you learn from it and you're like, oh, well, I won't be so academic. I'll use more of my intuition or my gut and that kind of thing. All right, cool. So then last thing is just like, if anyone out there is maybe wanting to start their own business or something like that, would you have any words for yourself, maybe when you were starting out, you wish you knew now?
I think it had a good grounding. So I think it's know your costs, know your market, know your limitations, and know your pricing.
Sweet. So that's pretty much it for the podcast. Have you enjoyed that?
Yeah, it was different.
Yeah, nice. So do you want to say where people can find CFS?
So if you're interested, we are cfs.wales on our website, and we're on Facebook and all social media.
Cool. So if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to subscribe. If you like the video, leave a comment, your favourite part, or any future guests you want on there. If you listen on Apple or Spotify, make sure to follow the podcast, leave a 5-star review, and we'll see you next time. Bye.